Apologies.
Like George Orwell in 1984. Go ahead.
All right, third time's a charm. The Greater Sudbury Police Service strives to build positive and respectful relationships with the original inhabitants of this land, including First Nations peoples, Métis peoples, and Inuit. It is in this spirit that we, as a service, honor and acknowledge that we serve in this land that is cared for from time immemorial by the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We further acknowledge this land as a dish with one spoon and the Robinson-Huron Treaty region. In peace, our first duty.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Roll call.
Thank you, Chair Lougheed.
Present.
Thank you, Vice Chair Poland.
Present.
Thank you, Member Forte. Member Lefebvre.
Present.
Thank you. Member Sizer is absent today. Chief Cunningham.
Present.
Thank you. And Deputy Chief Hiltz.
Just a bit of information for everybody. Matthew and I have talked. All our motions have a duly mover and seconder. So when we call for the vote, there will not be that kind of lost time. And I am also working on the fact that we won't have to state the obvious at every meeting about the roll call, that Matthew has a good pair of eyes in his head and he'll see who's here. And we don't all have to say present, but that will be for next meeting. Having that, declarations of conflict of interest. Hearing none, moving to our consent agenda. So the consent agenda's parameters have been obviously defined in our binder today. I guess I would ask the board members who are obviously have read the consent agenda, do we have any questions? Krista, do you have any questions? Mayor Lefebvre?
Nope.
Sean Poland? So I have a question. I wouldn't want to lose my reputation for questions. In our consent agenda was the issue about accessibility and the acts in Ontario about accessibility. And there's quite a few documents with regard to our police service having accessibility. But my question is, what about bad guys that are disabled? How do we get them to the jail? Because I know the people that would like to get in the car, likely you have that transport available. So if somebody is disabled and you're arresting them, what's our accessibility plan for that, Chief?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair Sizer, Chair Sizer. Better adjust here. Chair Lougheed, a great question. So we do have an administrative report in relation to this. It is our admin 002. And so transporting prisoners with disabilities is outlined there. So we do have a contract with the GOVA through the city, and we're able to, again, bring those individuals into the station. One of the things this board knows is what we're trying to do is release prisoners, at the roadside or through the officer in charge at the station. So, when they're brought in, the officer in charge should be reviewing whether or not we should be keeping them in the cells. If so, we have a procedure that outlines the steps to do that, but we should be releasing the individual to compel them to appear in court.
So my question likely is more specific than that, that in fact, if somebody is disabled, let's say they have a wheelchair and they're dealing drugs and they get arrested, do you call GOVA to pick them up with a police officer, or how do you get the person that you think is a criminal here?
Yes. Okay. So again, if we have to bring them here, they're dealing drugs, we might not have to bring them here. So we would release them at the roadside, compelling them to appear in court with their documents. If we do have to bring them here, yes, we would get another officer to attend. One officer would, it's no different than EMS. If they're going up to the hospital, we have to put an officer in the back of the EMS. We would put an officer in the handy transit and get them to the police station with their accessibility aids.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. No other questions on consent? We have it moved and seconded. All those in favor? It's carried. Moving to the adoption of our minutes in terms of our public agenda, our discussion agenda, the adoption of minutes of January 22nd and February 28th. They have been duly moved and second. All those in favor? Carried. Accept consent and discussion agenda, January 22nd, 25. All those in favor? Carried. Direct board directions to the chief. You want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, so through you, Chair Lougheed, at many of our meetings, Board Administrator Matthew Gation will note that there's certain things that the board would like to see moving forward. One of them, at our last meeting, we had a presentation in relation to drugs in our community, the opioid crisis we're seeing here in our community. So one of the things we had discussed is bringing forward a community partner to have a discussion with the board on what we're seeing here in the community. I believe we've spoke about Dr. Coca coming to make a presentation about the crisis that he's seeing as the head psychiatrist here in Northern Ontario. So we hope to do that. That's a direction for next meeting. And it should be noted that at this meeting, we were to we have some annual reports, a use of force annual report, and next month, April meeting, will report on our public complaints as well as our property audit. Those will be brought forward for April meeting.
So bringing that up just for everyone's benefit, at the last meeting, we suggested we might want to have a motion to declare an emergency of the overdoses in Sudbury. We thought that we likely should get more information on that. So I have talked to Dr. Coca. He's in India this week, but he's quite prepared to come in the April meeting and to give us an update. He does feel there is a crisis in our community and that it is an emergency. Chief Cunningham actually sits on the panel that kind of monitors that. So at our April meeting, we'll likely proceed with that motion once we kind of get more information about it. We're all good with that? So let's go to the annual reports. Chief, missing persons annual report.
Get there. So through you, Chair Lougheed, this annual report is a requirement of the ministry. So under Section 8 of the Act, police services are required to report annually the use of what's called urgent demands. And through Inspector Wilmot, this report was put together. We have a missing person investigator in that unit. And you'll see in 2024, we made 12 urgent demands, 8 of which were in relation to missing person investigations, and the 4 remaining were associated to personal welfare or person well-being investigations. You'll see on the last 2 pages the urgent demands. A lot of times records of financial information, we'll look to see if someone has recently used their debit card or been into a bank, maybe be able to get the individual on CCTV camera. And you'll see that we were assisted in locating these individuals. So again, it's a requirement under the Act that we report this annually to the ministry.
Questions? Members? Member Poland, Member Fave, Member Forche? No questions? I believe there's a motion to this, moved and seconded to accept this report. All those in favor? It's carried. Use of force annual report, Chief.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Lougheed. This use of force reports were introduced by the government to ensure, of course, transparency, monitor trends, improve training for police services. This report, you'll see that in 2023, the name of this report was changed to the Ontario Public Police Interactions Training Aid. We have one of our use of force trainers here today. So again, this model is a provincial model used by all police services, and it's used to assist us in training our officers. So you'll see by this report, during 2024, a total of 77 reports were submitted. However, there were 71 incidences, and why it is like that is because sometimes there are more than one officer involved in the situation, and so each individual officer is to complete a report. It should be noted on page 79, which I think is a good stat, is that there's a decrease in our mental health incidences. However, our mental health calls for service have gone up. I would hope that this is attributed to some of the things we've put into place, and that's our mobile crisis rapid response teams. We've dedicated mental health professionals assisting us with our officers out on these calls. And I would also suggest that it's important to note that our training branch really does train in de-escalation and talking with individuals, and so hopefully the training that we're doing with our officers has decreased. So again, doing this report and reviewing annually is a great way for us to look at, again, trends that we're seeing here locally, look at our training, and see if we are providing adequate training to our members, and again, prioritizing de-escalation to minimize the need for force. So this is our report to the board, and pending any questions.
Questions? Member Forche, do you have any questions to it? Mayor Lefebvre? Member Poland? So I do on page 79, since you bring it to our attention, Chief. I think percentages can sometimes skew in terms of experiences, but I do sadly acknowledge that intimate partner violence has stayed consistent from last year to this year, and is kind of the bad experiences with the community. I will remind the board and the community that we did pass a motion indicating that we thought this was epidemic. It was sent to the province. To be fair to the Ford government at that time, it is at second reading. They did have a standing committee looking at this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on whose political viewpoint you have, there was an election called, and that committee has obviously stopped. And the premier started swearing in MPPs, I think, yesterday. So there likely will be a new cabinet by next week, and hopefully they will follow up with the IPV and the motion that it is epidemic in the province. So that statistic to me stands out in our community, unfortunately, but I think it stands out in all communities as well. Do you have anything to add to that, Chief?
No, I do not. You'll see by our report, the chief's report again, we're seeing those numbers, high every month. So I'm glad this board's made that motion. Thank you.
And destruction of animals. It's actually number 2 this year, and it was about number 7 or 8 last year. Now it's difference of, I guess, 7 animals were destroyed this year and 4 last year, not using the percentages. Are those domestic animals that are vicious, or are those wild animals that are terrorizing people?
No, if anybody, Constable Gagnon, do you know when reviewing those reports? Wild animals. Thank you, sir.
So just curiosity, the bears are all hopefully in hibernation right now, but they'll be kind of coming to life in the next month. Are the bears in that number 2, or does that go over to M&R?
It's both. It's a partnership. We'll respond, we'll call the M&R. And at times, we're the ones that are going to have to act because the M&R can't make it out.
And last question, is Bear Wise still in existence in our community?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So that is a partnership between you and M&R. Okay. No other questions by me, except I guess fall weather creates a little bit more of use of force too, eh?
Fall weather?
Yeah, it says October to December. There seems to be more incidences. They seem to lay back from violence in the summer and in the winter. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that looks to be a trend. I don't know if it's
Shorter days and people getting depressed. So moving on in our agenda, then a motion has been moved and seconded that we accept the use of force annual report 2024. All those in favor? It's carried. Agreements. Harris Radio Agreement update.
Yes, through you, Chair Lougheed, thank you. This board knows that every year at budget time, we present our communication capital budget, and our 10-year radio system is due to expire this, actually it expired on March 1st of this year. And some good things came out of the COVID pandemic, and one of the things was that we were due to refresh our radio system in 2020, and that was put on hold. And so we refreshed the system in 2022, upgrading the infrastructure, upgrading our towers. And so the current radio system that we have now, our P25 system, really does still meet our needs. We still have lots of life left in it. So we are asking the board to approve a continuation with Harris Radio System. As you know, we debt financed the radio system from 10 years ago. That debt has been paid off. We have been putting away capital funds for a new system. So we will pull out of our capital communication reserve fund to pay for the 3-year continuance. As you know, we house the 911 system here in Greater Sudbury. So we have met with our partners at Fire Services, and they are happy to continue, as well as transit through the city, and city bylaw are on our radio system as well. So we're looking for the board's approval to continue with this radio system as it is continuing to meet our needs, and we'll plan for 3 years out.
So just to assure the board, the key word in this discussion is continuation, that there is an existing contract, this is the vendor, and that it just makes it more efficient and better use of our funds. So it has been duly moved and second. Any discussion about the motion? All those in favor? It's carried. You have a similar motion coming up next.
Yes, we do. So just so the board knows, I believe there's already been media. As you know, we're supposed to cut over to the NG 911 system. That has been pushed ahead another 2 years. We're about 90% ready to go. We did get a lot of NG 911 funding, which was great. And one of the things that we looked to purchase, and reported on this last summer, we're seeing our current cooling system for our data and infrastructure. It was installed over 25 years ago. It has completely reached its end of life. We had a failure last summer that sent us into a bit of a spiral. And so what we're looking is we received some funding here. You'll see the number of 432,000. We're looking to purchase an all-in-one data center through, it's called Vertiv Smart Row System. And Nathan Dokis is here if there's any real technical questions. But we've done lots of research, and we're looking, again, it's a strategic investment in the long-term sustainability for our system, our data center, as well as our 911, and ensuring that we are resilient and again future-proof. So looking to the board to approve the 92,000 to be drawn out of our current infrastructure and capital account.
Questions, board members, to that investment? Sean?
I missed this. Sorry about that. Very quick question. How soon will we receive?
This?
Yeah.
Nathan, do you want to be able to answer that?
Yep, through you, Chair. So once this procurement is approved to go through, speaking with the vendor, there's I believe it's a 16-week build time to receive the infrastructure. With that, though, there's a larger capital project to actually redesign the data center itself. So this is one component of a larger capital project. This is, the hardware infrastructure that's going to go in, that's going to support all the servers and technology. But the actual room itself, the data center room, needs a renovation and a relocation in the 190 Brady Street Tower. So there's a larger capital project that's associated with this.
That answer your question, Member Poland? Member Lefebvre, Fortier, any questions? Being duly moved and seconded, all those in favor? Carried. So we then come to finance reports. Donation policy review. If you recall at our last meeting, we were given the task of reviewing the donation policies, which in fact every meeting we are very generous to the community with regard to the youth initiative and with regard to the reserve fund. So Vice Chair Poland and I, with the help of staff and with the help of the chief, actually had quite a productive meeting and did review the policy. The policies have been sent in your binders. We basically took the chief's recommendations, which if you remember, once a year, maximum 2,500, it had to stay local. We also, I think, Sean, it's fair to say we expanded upon that just a wee bit with regard to how we take monies in and whether in fact the monies are appropriate for us to bring in. For example, if somebody wanted to have a issue in the community that some other agency would be better to make a bursary, make an investment, that maybe we have to have some sort of a vetting process to say that maybe this is not money we should receive. We also reviewed all the money that we're presently holding, and it was fair that we identified that some of that money likely should be now spent. And we also are suggesting today in this motion that after 3 years, if the money is not spent, it will roll into the larger fund so it can be spent. So we just basically don't have stagnant donated dollars that aren't improving the quality of life in our community. We did identify, I think, $6,000 with regard to a bursary fund. And the suggestion is, Chief, that you and Vice Chair Poland might consider Cambrian Foundation, since the Police Foundation works through there, that they might have candidates that could access those bursaries. As an old and decrepit basketball player, I'm well aware that George Cirrus has a basketball academy. We actually have $3,000 left in a Mason account for basketball activities. I've approached George and he is working on a proposal where disadvantaged youth in the community will be able to have basketball sessions and their own tournament. So that likely will come up to the donations committee. We are also recommending it becomes a standing committee that will meet twice a year to review monies that are existing, how they're invested, how we've received them, and then again come to our monthly meetings of how they're spent. I think, Sean, that's a pretty good evaluation. Thumbs up. Thank you. You don't have any questions, I'm sure, because you were there. All right. Paul, Krista, do you have any questions? Chief, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I don't think so. Again, I think it's important that generally we have one big fundraiser, and that's our gala coming up, our community gala, in which we raise money for our Chiefs Youth Initiative. And again, I think it's important that those funds stay locally and support the youth here in Sudbury. And again, it supports great things like Cops, Kids, and Fishing, our annual Shop with the Cops. So I'm happy to see that added.
And just a bit of an advertisement as well. On Friday, May the 9th, that's when the gala will take place, and those monies are going to be used in this fund. So everybody attend. The reserve money is the money from the online auctions, correct, Chief?
That is correct.
And that has stagnated just a bit.
It sure has.
Okay. So if you remember at one of the meetings, I suggested that we just roll in the reserve fund to the youth fund. Tom Gervais, who's not able to join us today, said under legislation, we cannot do that. So we will always keep the reserve funds separate until either we run out of money or they sell more bicycles. Any questions? This motion, I think, should be read, Matthew.
Of course, that the Greater Sudbury Police Service Board accept the recommended changes to GSPSB Policy 5, donation and community sponsorships, and the associated donation request forms. And further, that the board direct the Chief of Police to enact said changes or set updates to applicable service procedures and practices.
It's been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? It's carried. And kind of same church, different pew, donations, reserve fund, trust report. And we actually have some recommendations of how we're going to spend that money. So Chief, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lougheed. So one event that's already taken place was the law enforcement polar plunge here locally. A great event. We had over 200 plungers this year, including myself. So thank you to the board for the donation of $2,500. It was so nice, great community event. It actually was a nice day. The lake was filled with people, so thank you for that. $1,800 in support of the Sudbury Manitoulin Children's Foundation Play Program. Again, positive leisure for youth here in locally. So a request for $1,800 there. And then one that we do annually is $250 in support of the Joe Mantle Music Trust. That allows youth through the Rainbow District School Board to purchase new instruments. So allow youth that are involved in music programs to continue with that passion.
Questions to anybody? Member Forche?
For you, Chair. I just have a question about the balance in the account. We're probably down to less than 2,000 now. And I understand that the gala is one of the primary fundraisers. So it's
the only.
It's the only fundraiser. I was going to ask if there are any other fundraisers. So there's not. Okay.
So just for Member Forte, that is with these removed. So we are at that number, 4,472. So we're in need of, yes, our gala, because we're still getting requests coming in.
So following up in your question, Member Forche, the gala on average generates how much money, Chief?
About $30,000.
And that obviously suffices for the year for us, especially now that we've actually got the $2,500 cap and the local part, Member Forche. Sometimes, if you remember, I think we had one or two that were like $5,000. That won't, moving forward, that won't happen. So it has been moved. You can read the motion. Those in favor? I think we should likely have a motion with regard to congratulations to the chief, to the organizing committee, and the fact that nobody died of a heart attack going into the icy waters. Everybody was healthy afterwards. There was great pictures by the local media who are here today. Thank you very much for that coverage. And in fact, there was significant monies, depending on who you talk to, Chief, anywhere from $38,000 and up, correct?
That's correct. And actually, Inspector Brunette, who leads that, I believe, Mark, 45,000 is the final number.
Yeah, our final number was 47,000.
Oh, that's magnificent. So I would suggest we have a motion of congratulations, commending our chief, our wonderful team, and all the volunteers that jumped into the water. Can I have a mover and seconder on this? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, and please note that, Matthew. Moving to the other fund, Board Reserve Trust Funds requests. Chief,
Flipped ahead.
it's the motorcycle training.
Yes. So there was a request through Constable Roberge and Constable Gosselin to attend a police motorcycle training seminar. Again, they will go away down south, and I believe it's a competition as well. So they will hone their skills, learn new skills, and come back and hopefully train the other motor officers. So a request of $2,000 in support of the officers attending this North America competition, just to offset some of the costs. They will drive as far as Toronto and join the TPS police service and travel with them.
Questions? Be aware that a few years ago, we actually hosted a similar event
Did.
out at the Walmart parking lot. It actually rained a lot. So it
Great Lakes motorcycle.
that's right. So it was a lot more slipperier too. But this is the one that I would like to bring to your attention, that in the new policy, it says discretion. We did stress the word local with regard to investing dollars, but as a board, we have the discretion, if the event's outside the region of Sudbury, that we can make this donation.
Correct.
So this would very much qualify for that. It's been duly moved and seconded. Any comments or questions about this? Call for the vote. All those in favor, and it's carried. So Matthew, Board Reserve Trust Fund report.
We just had that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that's that's the donations. There's no report either. You have it as 9.3.
It notes the balance here. I don't know if I should have.
Can it just indicate the balance?
Yeah, the chief just spoke to that.
Yeah, I think it's to tell us what the balance is. So
Yeah, so the current balance in the board trust fund is $22,739.53.
and that is the online auction stuff. Moving on then, board reports. We had a review of the schedule. I think it is being published. We will not have a meeting in May, as we have Police Week, and we also have the gala with commitments for board members. Chief, do you want to speak to Police Week at all?
Yeah, happy to. So again, May 9th will be the Chief and Community Gala, and that Sunday is the kickoff of our Police Week. We're yet to know the provincial theme, but Inspector DePottier and Caitlin Dunn and really everybody on the team is working diligently to get that agenda set for the week. As you know, we always have a lot of community engagement that week, highlighting the police service. So we'll continue to do that. I know we are partnering with Cambrian College and hosting several events throughout the week at Cambrian. So we look forward to it.
Sounds good. Any questions with regard to Police Week? And again, May the 9th is our gala, which obviously helps that fund. Moving to the report for the board administrator. This is a new item on our board with regard to our public meetings. I've asked our administrator, Matthew Gation, to actually make a report to his activities each week or each month. Matthew has done a great job over these last several weeks. The board is very satisfied with his productivity and his outcomes. But it would be fair to the community to know that he is an integral part of our team. And Matthew, we will give you a few minutes to tell us what you've done.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. The board has had the opportunity to read the report. A lot of the board functions while they're ongoing are, confidential to the board because a lot of it tends to deal with finance or some HR items. But we have had, quite a busy start to the year. There are some ongoing labor relations and policy projects ongoing, as well as we've already had one of our yearly conferences, which I attended with the chair and vice chair. As well, I participated in the polar plunge as a judge. So got to see the chief up close and personal, get in the water. She looked great. And as it notes, still some ongoing projects, which I'm happy to be working on for the board.
Thank you, Matthew. Any questions to Matthew and his work? Member Poland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matthew, what constitutes a good polar plunge?
Sorry, say again.
What constitutes a good polar plunge? As a
I'd like
judge,
to know
what are
too.
those things that you're looking for?
Good jump form, I
quality
suppose.
contestant.
And she exited gracefully on the ladder, so I'll hand that to her.
I take it the
I didn't
chief,
win a prize.
chief won something, obviously. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Good idea, Matthew. Yeah, smart way. Uh, Are you satisfied with that answer, Member Poland? Good for now. All right. Thank you very much, Matthew, and your work, your report. Moving to the chief's report. Chief Cunningham?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lougheed. Again, a real highlight to highlight the work being done by our members, between meetings. You'll note that the change in name. As the board knows, we've released a new organizational chart, and what used to be called the Special Operations Division under Inspector Depotier is now the Community Safety and Wellbeing Division. Again, aligning with lots of work being done by the city and our mobilization and engagement in the community. So we have renamed that unit to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Unit. You can see doing a lot of engagement in our community, and one of the things is the bail compliance and warrant apprehension. They are out arresting individuals, and you can see by the number of warrants executed, and again bringing those individuals back before the courts. Are there any questions in relation to the community safety and well-being section?
Member Poland? Member Lefebvre? Member Forche? Again, I guess, Chief, I would bring to the attention, again, sadly, that the IPV investigations were 211 and investigations follow-up was 106. So that number doesn't seem to move a whole lot. We seem to be consistently having that problem in our community. So that's why we want to make it a priority to somehow address that number and to either drive it down or to be able to figure out if we should check more people.
And I can speak at a high level. I was on a call yesterday through the CACP, which is Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, as well as OACP, and really working collaboratively. And I know the deputy can speak to this as well if she wants. But just working with our community partners that are in this space and how we can continue to do more education. One would think that people would know it's not permitted, to condone behavior when it comes to these IPV situations. But it's like impaired driving, individuals even know, we're out there, we're educating, it continues to happen, unfortunately.
Deputy, did you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair Lougheed. Just to add that just focusing on our community partnership that's in line with our strategic plan, that we continue to do work under the CSWB umbrella at the municipal level, and Greater Sudbury Police continues to remain very committed to coming up with innovative practices to stem the amount of intimate partner violence in Greater Sudbury.
So, as I mentioned earlier about Dr. Coca with regard to addressing the overdose issue, I've also talked to Barbara Ridley from Cedar Place, and she's quite prepared to come and make us a quick presentation to explain the frustration that we don't have enough beds. So these women that are trying to get out of bad relationships have no place to go, and they end up back in the house where they got abused. So this, as she says, is just a very vicious circle, and that indeed, if we had more resources and more bids, that some of these women would be better protected. So likely in our June meeting, Barbara will be here to kind of give us a bit of an update with regard to that as well. Page 107, Chief. With regard to my favorite question, bicycle retrievals. And I see we're down to 4 Deputy Hiltz. We're usually at 7, but we're at 4. And I guess my question is, Is the new licensing system working? Because good weather's coming and there's going to be a lot more bikes on the road, and are people using that so that we don't have so many stolen bikes?
Thank you very much, Chair Lougheed. I can tell you that, I listen to the board, and I know that this has been an issue that's been brought up in previous board meetings. And so Greater Sudbury Police, with the assistance of the new Community Safety Wellbeing Branch and Inspector DePazzi, we have secured a partnership with Garage 529. We are well underway in rolling out a new program here at Greater Sudbury Police to actually increase bicycle retrievals here in our city. So if you'd like more detail, I can turn it over to Inspector DePazzi. We are doing this initiative in partnership with several community partners, which again is in line with our strat plan because it is a shared commitment. Inspector DePazzi?
Dan?
Hello. Good morning. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so our partnership with 529 Garage has commenced. And so what we've done is with that, we've reached out to, I count here, 6 smaller retail stores, 3 bigger box stores, and 4 community clubs such as Kiwi Park, the Walden Mountain Bike Club, to secure partnerships with them with regards to this. And so what we're looking for is that at point of sale, these bikes will be registered by these retailers. And so it gets into our system, right? And so what we have is 529 Garage is an app that's going to be on all our officers' phones. And when officers are out there investigating and making community contacts, they will be able to quickly check the serial number of that bike to see if it is in fact stolen. And so that's well on our way. We have the information up on our website, thanks to corporate communications. What you're going to start to see in April, as the weather gets nicer, is a soft launch through social media. But what we've really done is we've prepared for a hard launch in June, partnership with the city, which is Bike Month in the city of Greater Sudbury. So you're going to see and hear a lot about that program in June. And so we're really excited about this. And we're also doing lineup training with our officers to make our officers aware about this. Obviously, our community response unit officers, our bike patrol officers are very familiar with this and have been involved. But we also want our frontline officers who may be interacting with people daily in the community to know that, they should check the bikes. The other aspect of this is what may happen is at point of sale, they may also get a sticker. And so the sticker is just a visual cue for people that are potentially looking at committing theft to know that that bike is registered through the program. And so they may not want to steal it. And secondly, for officers to be aware, okay, that's a program, that's a bike that we know the serial number is likely in our database. And therefore, that's one that we're going to want to check. So happy to report, Mr. Chair, that we're well on our way. And lastly, I will say that we, again, through our partnership with the city, we've secured the electronic billboard at Bell Park. And so the city is going to be running ads with regards to our 529 Garage partnership regularly for us to highlight that program. So we're well on our way and prepared for that when the weather turns warm.
Sounds good stuff, Inspector DePazzi. The only question I have you put that same information through the school systems?
Not yet.
I'd strongly suggest that you do that.
Yeah.
And I bike, and I guess the question is that likely we deal with a lot more serious issues with regard to policing in the community. But when a kid gets its bike stolen, and bikes are not cheap anymore. So if we're talking anywhere from $200 to $2,000 for a bike, this sounds really good, Dan. So if you can the more people you can tell, I think there's going to be a lot more happier parents, because I know my grandson's bike was stolen out of the garage in Hamner, and they're never too sure whether somebody came from out of town and gathered up a whole bunch of bikes out of that subdivision and took them back to Sudbury, or took them back to Toronto to sell to them. So I think if the schools can register them, that's a really good idea.
Yes, thank you. Through our SROs, we'll be able to do that. As well, as you know, we run a summer program, the Spider Bike program, where we get 6 or 8 kids that ride bike with our officers, and through that forum as well, it's another contact with the schools, and so it will be looked after.
Great. Tell us about the hard launch, because then we could all bring our bikes too, and I'm sure all the board members have bikes, so we'll all be there for you.
Yeah, we'll let you know. And again, through corporate communications, we're tied in. So Caitlin and I are working on this regularly. We'll
Sounds
be
good.
ready.
Okay, appreciate it, Dan. Thank you. Moving over to back to you, Chief.
Yes, next are our emergency communications. Again, on page 108, you'll note, I'll just highlight it, that our intimate partner violence data, still staggering numbers. In February, 230 incidences reported to police. So we highlight that again. Our verified alarm response program is doing extremely well for us. And then lastly, again, in some of the organizational chart moves, we made a very strategic move in having a staff sergeant. So repurposed a staff sergeant. We did not go up a staff sergeant, but moved a staff sergeant into our 911 Emergency Communications Center to work with manager Andrea Savage and her staff up there, but really looking and working with Inspector Brown and some of our patrol operations members, and really looking at efficiently and effectively deploying our officers and how we're deploying them on the front line. Should we be looking at ways of working with community partners, and are there calls that we should not be as a police service responding to, but we're the catch-all? This board knows I've spoken about that a lot. So we've strategically put staff Laura Russian up in the comm center to really look at moving us forward. So that's been a move.
Questions about the comm center, board members? Yes, I wrote on my notes on page 101, how's it working? And I guess my question, then you've kind of given a good report, Chief, but is there an evaluative component that after 3 months or 6 months, there's going to be a report come back to obviously you that that sergeant was a good idea?
Yeah, so we're actually meeting those involved next week. We have a meeting. So she's been up there about a month, getting settled. She's now going to hopefully bring forward to us, some of the ideas that she would like to put forward. Again, we've had some calls for service review done by Inspector DePazzi and Inspector Brown. So working together, and then we'll step off and look at our priorities.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to patrol operations, Chief.
Yes, patrol operations. Again, some strategic moves that we've made in the last little while. So one of the things is our Police Community Response Center. So moving forward, it'll be referred to as E-Platoon. It really is an extension of our patrol operations. Patrol operations is, platoons A through D. So E-Platoon is an extension. Really, it is a call for service, whether we're doing a delayed mobile response officer out or we're calling the individual over the telephone. So you'll start to hear us refer to that as E-Platoon. Again, you see they're making or taking a significant amount of calls away from the front line. And so just some highlights here again from our patrol operations. And Inspector Brown has noted two significant events that our members attended to. As you know, these high priority calls, our frontline members are attending first, and they're the response, often handing over to CID and engaging with our other units of emergency response, K9, etc.
Member Forche, any questions?
No, I think it's telling that 84% of the police call volume is not criminal in nature.
Yep. No, for sure. And the board knows we spoke about that really at our budget meeting. And that again is a reason, calls that are coming into the 911 ECC, whether non-emergent or emergent, often it could have been better suited taken by another community partner. And so we're really going to look at that. And we've seen those gains in the mobile crisis rapid response, and just, individuals going with police officers, but we might not even need the police attending to some of these calls. So.
Member Lefebvre, anything? Member Poland? So page 109, Chief, it says during the same period, a total of 876 reports were filed through the online reporting Cop Logic. The highest call was shop theft. Second highest was AWOL program. I guess I wrote beside that note of the 876, how many were solved? Do you know?
Nope. Inspector Brown?
No. Through you, Chair. At this time, I don't have a number in terms of 876. I would say respectfully that investigations in most would be, or many of them would be ongoing still at this time.
So I guess, Inspector Brown, my concern to each meeting is we get these numbers as taxpayers, people say, okay, I called CopLogic. They did nothing. That's not a really fair comment because they don't understand the process. To your point, it's ongoing. But do you think in moving forward, when you give us the number, is there a way that you can actually tell us out of this number over the last 3 months, we were able to solve this many off CopLogic?
Yes, Chair, I think there's a way I can break those numbers down.
Okay, I think that would be the deliverable in terms of the program. Okay.
Yeah, and it should be noted, though, the reason a lot of these go to online reporting or go, through the non-emergent line is there are no suspect information. And so, I'll use someone they're having their shed broken into and, tools. They want to report it to their insurance company. The insurance company will say to them, well, we need a police report number. They're looking for a report number. It could be 6 months. It could be a year where our break-in or robbery unit goes and does a search warrant and there's all these DeWalt tools. It could be some time that we would actually know that it was quote unquote solved. We'll be able through our data and analytics to link it back to certain B&E. Same with crime trends. So I would be a little leery in giving solvable rates like in that time frame, and narrowing it down because again, a lot of these incidences are reported that way because there are no suspect information.
The first time I was on the board, we introduced CopLogic, and the idea was going to save resources and be more effective. So I guess the thought is the community is often used to seeing a cruiser pull up with a person in a uniform coming to the door and saying, let me see your shed. That doesn't happen anymore. So it's just that we can satisfy that, in fact, we're still doing due diligence. And to your point, if the B&E people can say, guess what, we've solved all the shed problems in the northern part of Sudbury, then we need to report that. Robert Norman's report, Chief.
Yes, Inspector Norman from Integrated Operations. Again, highlighting some changes. We had our Rural Community Response Unit as well as our Traffic Management Unit. They are now one unit, the Integrated Traffic Safety Unit. Again, lots of synergies there between our motorized snow vehicle as well as our boat patrol. So we've put those two units together. You'll see some of the highlights of what took place in this unit from that high visibility, the snowmobile enforcement, of course, ride every month. Again, we're still seeing high numbers, 45 impaired driving charges between January and February. Also in this division is the emergency response unit. You'll see on 114, 115, they are helping a lot of our other units, whether it's in search warrants or these barricaded persons. One incident that, of course, was very public was the Laurentian University. So our ERU team was out there. And again, kind of these high-risk search warrants, as well as the K9 unit is usually assisting in those as well. So unless there's any questions, again, lots of great work being done under integrated operations. It should be noted again, a strategic move in this reorganization is our training and professional development. So our use of force officers and training and development are now under this section as well.
Member Forte.
I think what jumped out to me was the significant increase in provincial offense notices from January to February, as well as the Part 3 summons with almost 4 or 5 times the amount from January.
Inspector Norman, is there more enforcement?
Yeah, through you, Chief and Chair, I can speak to the increase of officer presence on our roadway. ITSU, formerly the TMU and Rural Squad, was supporting patrol operations and calls for service. And when they're supporting patrol operations for calls for service, they're not out doing their primary function, which is traffic enforcement. Thanks to the great work of Inspector Brown in reallocating resources, we've been able to show a higher presence and enforce road safety throughout the community. So you'll note in the report as well that it's not just on road, it's also off road. We had a significant campaign of motorized snow vehicle enforcement on our trails this year for the time that we were able to get out there. And that also contributes to the increase of notices and Part 3.
Member Lefebvre. Poland?
If I can, the tactical unit, if I'm reading this correctly, on page 113, the tactical EMS was deployed 5 times, and significant tactical incidents was also 5. What qualifies as a significant tactical incident, out of curiosity, please?
So anytime our ERU rolls on any sort of incident, that would be deemed a tactical incident. We do the service has adopted an incident command protocol, which is endorsed through the CSPA, where we have a tiered response to incident command. We have a critical incident command response, and we have general incident command response. Tactical incidents fall into both. So TEMS is a partnership with our local paramedic service provider, where they are tactically trained to support us when we are deployed. So it is our general practice when we deploy on any incident that we bring in our tactical medics to support our engagement, both for the community as well as our members, should we require medical assistance.
So my my question then, Chief, perhaps through Inspector Norman as well. 958 motor vehicles were stopped in January and February. Is that an average for 2 months? We stop 250 people every 2 months?
Inspector Norman, that is through the total ride check. So 958. I don't know. We don't have the averages for.
I'll finish the question perhaps, Chief. If I do the arithmetic on this, 45 were impaired drivers. So if I multiply that by 6, that means there'll be 270 impaired drivers in Sudbury this year. Correct?
So again, through you, Chief and Chair, I'd urge caution with your math.
Okay.
Because our statistics are based on our enforcement opportunities.
Yes.
So we don't want to look at trends or create averages. It all is dependent on when we're out there and what our enforcement capacity is at that moment.
That's kind of my point as well, Inspector Norman, because I would assume that in December, you're stopping more cars than perhaps any other time in the year because of the festive ride programs and the resources that go into that, correct?
Yeah, the Festive Ride program is a specific campaign where we engage with our community partners as well as media, and we promote during that time that we will have a zero tolerance. The zero tolerance applies throughout the year. I can tell you that the government provides funding for us to have ride campaigns throughout the year, one of which we just had this past weekend as a result of the St. Patrick's Day weekend, which resulted in 2 impaireds being caught. And if my memory serves me correct, there was 210 vehicles checked in that moment. So, again, I urge caution with your math in creating trends and averages that may not be accurate.
So is it unreasonable? We just had annual reports about use of force and annual reports that we're going to get next month. In 2024, is there a number of how many impaired drivers were in Sudbury for that year?
I'm sure we could find that. I don't have it here with me, but I'm sure it's something that we can get.
So if at our
Yeah,
next
so we'll
meeting
have
we
the
could, yeah.
2024.
Because if I'm at 270 on 365 days a year, I'm almost getting obviously a fraction, and I'm not going to stay by my math, Bob, but I guess the thought is that 2/3 of a drunk driver every day is out on our roads. But I'd like to know on an annual basis, how many times did you get charged? Because there's a whole bunch of drunk drivers that don't get picked up either. So I think that's the other part to the issue with regard to making awareness to the community that we in our community have a problem with drunk drivers. Mayor?
Actually, if I can just jump in, Caitlin Dunn was able to pull some data for me. So for 2024, for 2024, there were 284 impaired operators.
My math's not that bad, Bob. I'm at 270. Yeah.
2023, 294.
Okay, so
2022, 279. But again, those numbers are as a result of our enforcement presence at the time. With an increased enforcement presence, I expect those numbers to go up.
And possibly the percentages go down, because if you check more drivers and there's more sober ones, you'll get smaller percentages, but you could get more charges. I understand the math issue,
Absolutely.
but I think the thought is we're averaging 282 drunk drivers a year in Sudbury over those 3 years. Sorry, Mayor.
No, so it's okay, Chair. And on that note, I think what we're trying to to provide is, is it getting worse or is it getting better? Right? The enforcement, the education piece, and certainly a lot of the promotions that we're trying to do to certainly educate our youth and just the general population not to drive to drink and drive. So maybe to the chief, you can provide us maybe what other municipalities and boards doing to advise and how to kind of measure this so that we have the best in what's going on in our in the province to be able to at least determine trends. And I get what the inspector is saying. This it's not an exact science. I get that. However, I think what you've been asking at every meeting when you see these numbers, are we doing better? Do we need to do more enforcement? Do we need to do more education? But then be able to measure that. And so are we doing? Obviously, we're getting data, but how do we really translate that into facts? So if the chair and the inspector and the team, maybe at future meetings to allow us to see how we're doing, and then maybe from there, as a board, and certainly as a committee, can determine where we can put the resources to try to reduce those numbers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Agreed. Happy to do that. We'll step away and do that. I know a lot of our impaired charges are through, random patrols and not necessarily at the ride checks throughout the year. So, if those numbers 279, 284, 294, they're staying pretty consistent over the last 3 years. And through your math, it looks like we'll be headed to, that number again this year. But happy to take that way and do some research in other communities.
Just following up with Mayor LaFave's, if we stay with those numbers and we inspect more cars, then we're in the right direction.
Yeah.
So if you double the inspections and you still got 284, that's great. If you halved it and still had 284, that's not good. I think that's what we're looking for. It's not so much the numbers, it's the trend.
Thank you.
Moving on to Jerry Wilmot.
Yeah, Inspector Wilmot's area of our criminal investigations. Again, you'll see these are our major crimes. Again, lots being reported this month. You'll see some duplication through what ERU has reported, as well as patrol. But we continue to have some significant weapons offenses as well as drug offenses. You will have seen as well. There was some media and done on our missing person, Megan Pilon. So again, working with the Ontario Provincial Police and looking through Crime Stoppers as a reward and hopefully solving that very outstanding missing person investigation. Again, last month we had a presentation on the drug crisis, the opioid crisis, the fentanyl crisis we're having in this community. And you'll see that, again, we continue to get out there and conduct search warrants as well as enforcement in the downtown core in making some arrests relative to drugs. So you'll see some significant seizures there. Questions?
Mayor, did you want to speak to the downtown arrests?
Just wanted to maybe commend the team certainly to have more patrols and certainly to disrupt the business of the drug dealers that are.
Yeah, so through Inspector Wilmot and Staff Sergeant Heffern, and I believe Sergeant Speck and O'Shaughnessy, as well as Inspector DePotte's area, we did a bit of an enforcement initiative downtown, arrested, about 7 individuals a day. We did hear that from, our community partners, including the city, as well as the downtown BIA, the business owners, that there's open drug use, open drug transactions downtown. So we really did some enforcement and, made some significant arrests that Caitlin was able to report on late last week. Thank you.
The feedback I got from the community is that's great. They were very happy that the downtown was being focused and arrests were being made. So kudos to your team. Vice Chair Poland, you got anything to add? Member Forche? All right. I was a bit curious, how did the OPP decide for a $50,000 reward? Do they just tell you that, or do you suggest that, or who sets the amount?
I don't know if that's through Crime Stoppers, Inspector Wilmot, or Deputy Hiltz. You were involved in those meetings.
Crime Stoppers is 2,000. It's the 50 grand from the OPP.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's the OPP selected that amount pending on the circumstances of the case. I take it. We're in support of that, and we appreciated the help they're doing. But obviously, this is an active investigation. We're still actively pursuing to find Megan Pilo. That will hopefully provide some leads that we can follow up on, and the 50,000 is was offered by the OPP in conjunction with the Crime Stoppers.
So Inspector Wilmot, did you recommend, I'm really more interested in the number, like how did they settle on 50,000? Do they tell you, or do you ask for that, or is it just random?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't answer that. The OPP provided that amount.
Okay, so it comes from them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the leads on this investigation.
Okay. I guess you come to corporate communications.
Yeah. So lastly, again, most of this already highlighted throughout, the month through Caitlin Dunn and her team. Corporate communications, we've already spoken about our Polar Plunge, great event. And these initiatives are really about, us as a police service, as a community police service, building relations. You'll see the Choose to Include campaign, which was great. It was through Special Olympics and the Donut Day at Tim Hortons. So there's always some great, police and donuts. Then our law enforcement torch run snowmobile ride. We had 48 sleds go out through Inspector Norman and Nolan Windle. We had the military come out and lots of riders. It was a great day. I was out there to see everybody. And again, the Fire and Ice charity hockey, that was through Caitlin Dunn and our friends at Fire Services. And there was a donation made to the Northern Ontario Families of Children with Kids with Cancer. I believe we've already decided they will be our charity again next year. You'll see the total amount of just over $32,000 was raised, which again was a wonderful event. Our Pink Shirt Day, that's Stand Up Against Bullying, and our International Police Hockey Tournament. Again, the board supported both our male and female teams to go down and participate in that. Our men did win. They earned a silver in the elite division, and our women made it to the finals, and unfortunately were not successful there. And then again, some highlights of International Women's Day last Saturday and some of our wonderful women in our organization. So again, just some great highlights from out the last month.
Any questions, board members? Obviously, lots of good initiatives and goodwill in the community. So thank you, and thank your team as well, Chair. We should likely, do we need a motion to accept all these reports, Matthew? No. For information then, thank you. New business? Anybody got any new business? Hearing none. Our next meeting will be April the 16th, which is a Wednesday, back to the Wednesdays, and our public meetings will begin at 10 o'clock. Hearing no other issues for our board, I will now declare adjournment. And everybody have a good day.